Hello, everyone. My name is Myra Silva, and welcome to Think Like Einstein's 2020 Alumni Day. The Think Like Einstein course is a program designed to help first-time freshman students develop critical thinking skills necessary to succeed in science-based college majors, as well as the careers that they pursue in the future. Unfortunately, this year, due to COVID-19, we will not have in-person class presentations as usual. Instead, we will be interviewing our alumni. It is our third year hosting the event, and we're extremely excited for our guests today. Lynne Yost is a native Californian. She attended CSUF from 1990 to 1996, switching her majors from anthropology to geology in 1994. She met her husband while in the geology program, and they were both active members of the department and the geology club. She worked under Dr. John Foster for her senior thesis, which consisted of a grant through the California Geological Survey to create geological maps for the use in Seismic Hazard Mapping Act. She received her bachelor's degree in 1996. Just a few months before commencement, she was hired as a staff geologist, at NMG Geotechnical, a privately owned consulting firm based in Irvine. Lynne has been fortunate enough to continue and advance her career at NMG Geotech over the last 24 years. She's a licensed professional geologist and certified engineering geologist, and has managed several interesting and challenging projects along the way. Lynne's been an active member of South Coast Geological Society during her career and is the current president of this professional group. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Myra. I will start our presentation. I did this actually for Think Like Einstein Day 2 years ago, and that was fortunately in class, which was a lot of fun, and I really did enjoy getting to stand up in front of the classroom and talk to students and then talk with a little bit one-on-one after. So I will start. Let's see. There we go. So I started as an anthropology major at Cal State Fullerton, and I was pretty much done. I had completed all the classes I needed. I took a grad check, and they said, oh, you need a lab. So I went ahead and took geology. I thought that sounds interesting. It's something I hadn't really done before. So I took the 101 class and the laboratory class, and I found I really enjoyed it. So I took the following class, which was the history of the Earth. It goes all the way back, all the way to the beginning of time. And it was so fascinating, I decided to change my major to geology. I took some of the field classes. I really enjoyed it. I managed to cram in changing a Bachelor of Arts to a Bachelor of Science in 2 years so that I could graduate in 1996. I was hired at NMG actually in April of 96 before I graduated on the recommendation from my professors in the department. My boss is also a Cal State Fullerton alum, and he came back to the department looking for someone, and they all recommended me. So I really didn't do much in the way of interviewing. Come back. There we go. My first day, I got to do something exciting. Oh, I see there's a little bit of a delay, sorry. My first day, I got to do something exciting. I got to map an exposure of the Christianitos Fault. Bulldozers were going by, exposing stuff in the field, and that is actually me. My boss took a picture of me as I was mapping in my field notebook. The very first day was, not everybody gets a very exciting thing to do on their first day, so this was a lot of fun that I got to see something really cool, and knowing where this fault is in this particular case was in Mission Viejo, and it's actually helped me in my career. I've got projects since then that are nearby, and I have vivid memories of what this exposure looked like, and it helps me to describe this fault system. So engineering geology is the application of the geological sciences to engineering practice to assure that geologic factors affecting the location, design, and construction of engineering works are recognized and adequately provided for. So if you go to build a new house, say you want to build a new house, you've got raw land and you want to build a house, you need a geologist to look at that to see, are there faults there? Are there landslides there? If so, can we work around them? Is there a way that we can build on the property, or is the property not buildable? For the most part, everything is buildable. It just depends on how much money you want to spend to do what needs to be done. So it's really anybody who's going to build something in anywhere in the United States needs an engineering geologist to review the site for them. One of the things we do is collect soil samples. I actually did this yesterday, training a new staff in Glendale, where we collect soil samples from the ground so that we can get a profile of what the ground looks like. One of the other things I do, which is an exciting part of it, is a large hole in the ground. So instead of just a small hole that you've drilled straight down and collected soil samples, we drill a larger borehole, and then we actually go down inside that. So they send me down to the bottom of the shaft, and I'm actually measuring the geology all the way down. So it gives us a beautiful profile of the subsurface conditions. So a lot of what we do is three-dimensional, and it gives us that three-dimensional view that we need to understand and properly characterize the site. So this is what one of the things I was looking at in the bottom of this boring was a contact between some gravelly rock and some sandier rock below it, and it was highlighted by iron staining, representing that there is some kind of hiatus in the deposition. That's me at the bottom of the boring, and you can see the top. This one's only about 50 feet deep, but sometimes we go, I think the deepest I've been is 140, and my boss has been 210 feet deep. So it's hard, physically hard work, but it is very rewarding, and it is one of the most interesting things that I do. And I'm claustrophobic, and it took me a while to feel comfortable with it, but I do. So once we've collected all the data, we need to create a model of the site that then the engineers in our office analyze. And here's an example of a map that has geologic cross sections through it. It's collected all of our data points, and then what we do is we draw what the subsurface looks like, and we try to figure out what they're going to build. In this case, there were these large structures 90 feet tall that we were able to show where the structures were going to sit in relation to some of these, the soil that's underneath the site. One of the other really fun things that we do is we get to field verify the data that we've collected. This is a very important part of any scientific process. You've created a model and you've created a theory of what the site looks like. Luckily for us in engineering geology, we get to test that. We get to go out there and dig up all of the dirt that was exposed and verify our theory to see if that is indeed what we thought it was. A lot of times it's not very simple. In this case, this particular site, we thought was just all sandstone. Once we started opening it up, there were a lot of faults everywhere. This is just an example of my field map. One day we had exposed just fault after fault and some water coming up on the faults, and they're not active faults, they're old, they've been in the bedrock. So it was just a matter of documenting everything that we collect. You can't collect too much information. One thing I'll talk about a little bit later. This one is one of great naturalist has a wonderful quote that I use a lot. The world is the geologist's great puzzle box. It really is. We get to put this all together, collect the data and put everything all together until we've created a picture beneath our hand just by drawing out what we think we see. So if you want to be a geologist, I have a lot of recommendations for you. And really, this could apply to a lot of sciences, although this one maybe not. So there is a running joke that, and I'm sure there's a joke still about the geology department drinking a lot of beer. I'm actually part of a Facebook group called Geologist Drinking Beer that my friend developed, the Facebook group, and it's 10,000 people strong in a worldwide group now. So there is that. So do what you love and love what you do. Find your passion. I loved anthropology. I was ready to go into the forensic program. I really loved my forensic anthropology classes. So, and it was, doing a grad check that made me realize I just stumbled across geology, and so many people in geology have a very similar story. They took a class, they didn't know something like this existed, and then suddenly they found their passion and they found their career. So it's really important to find something that allows you to use the skills that you are good at or that you like. Sometimes we still do things we don't like to do. Always ask for help. It's super important. I still ask for help. It's communication is the key, and no matter where you go, what you do, never assume that you know everything about it. Some people aren't as good as explaining things as others, so always ask questions. Focus, if you're not doing well in something, focus on it. Try to figure out a way to make it easier for you. The extra classes really may be helpful one day. I took a lot of writing classes and English classes because I love to write and I love to read and I love Shakespeare. So I took a lot of English classes at Cal State Fullerton. I don't even know how many units I had when I graduated, but a lot. And it helps me. I came to NMG on day one. They realized I was the best writer that we had. I've peer reviewed emails that our bosses send out. I peer review stuff that goes to our own people, things that go to our clients. I review contracts now because I am one of the better writers in the office, and they realized that early on. So extra classes, especially writing classes, will help with any science. Work hard, do your best, persevere, don't give up. Don't be that guy who dug and dug and dug and almost made it to the diamond mine. Just keep going. It's hard, but persevere. Impress your professors. They have connections. I can't stress this often enough either. Really talk to people, get to know people, impress them, because they know people in the industry and they can give you connections. They can help you find a place to start, which is sometimes the hardest thing to do. Hints for finding your career. Join professional society. So I'm president of the South Coast Geological Society. My boss encouraged me to join that group. In fact, the company pays for us all to be members of this group. And my boss is a past president, and another one of our colleagues from Cal State Fullerton is also a past president. So join professional societies, get your name out there. Sign up to do poster sessions, sign up to do presentations. Try to get your name out there, meet people, talk to people. Professional societies are really the best way to get to know people in the industry. Even retired people in the industry who still have connections are helpful. Use your networking, peers, professors, parents. I get a lot of people that I work with, civil engineers that I work with, that say, hey, my friend's kid just graduated in geology. They want to go into hydrogeology. Do you know someone? And I do. I know plenty of people. So I can connect people through that. So you never know who it is that's going to help you find a job. So impress them and network with them. Expect difficult questions, demonstrate problem solving. When we do interviews, we actually give a problem and expect people to work something out. We use a lot of mathematics. So we will provide a geometry problem and ask them to figure it out. And just show that you are willing to do the work that needs to be done. Expect difficult questions and be prepared to answer difficult questions. Talk to people who've interviewed before. That's one way to get an idea of what kind of questions come up. Be a good communicator. It's so important to talk to people, ask questions. I know it's a little harder in this day and age when a lot of people use technology instead. And in this case, we're communicating, but not really. So do your best to talk to people, ask questions, be present. Give employers and employees your undivided attention. Respect their time. Be punctual. Don't be this guy. Don't do that. That's terrible. We've had that where we've interviewed people and somebody called them and they answered their phone. And we understand, obviously, if there's an emergency, you know, my mom's calling and she's in the hospital, obviously that makes sense. But don't just look at your phone. Put it away. Ignore it. There's plenty of times we went through life without phones before. So it's just pay attention and be present, be punctual, show up on time, and give somebody your undivided attention. That really speaks volumes, especially now when we see it a lot. Again, ask questions, own your own mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. We all do. We do it every day. Just accept that you have that and learn from that. Move on to the next step. Collect all the data. This is so important in any scientific discipline. You can't go back and do your investigation again. Get all the information that you can. And if you don't need it, that's fine. Too much information is far better than not enough information. And writing skills, we all do writing. You go into chemistry thinking you're not going to have to write, but then you have to write a grant or a proposal. So unfortunately, it's everywhere. It's everything. So hone the writing skills. Do your best. And penmanship too. When we're in the field, there's no computers. We have to do it by hand, and we do a field log. And it's so important to be able to read it. Sometimes we get logs back that I can't even read what it says. So penmanship, although I know it's not something many of us use anymore, it's really important. And illustration, we do a lot for geology. We do a lot of illustration. So having very neat penmanship, being able to graphically explain what you understand the site to be. I've used my own hand drafted cross sections and reports because our engineers say, well, that looks as nice as if it was a computer generated, so let's just put it in the report like that. So it's really important, writing penmanship. We do continuous training and development. So this picture has all of our geologists minus one, who he actually works for another company now. And these are 6 Cal State Fullerton grads and 1 Cal State Long Beach grad. So those 2 programs really focus a lot on field work. And that's so important to us. So we do continuous training. Something's really cool or exciting out in the field, we will all go out on an afternoon and do a field trip and learn from what we see and talk to one another and try and understand something better. My boss, I don't know if you can see my pointer, probably not. My boss is the fella, let me see, the guy towards the back by the Jeep. And he came from Cal State Fullerton. He graduated in the 80s. And his motto is something he instills in all of us. And when we open up this ground and we expose everything and we get a chance to see what we've understood, what we think the site is going to be, and we really get to see it, we're the last ones that see it. They cover all this back up with earth and you never get to see it again. So his motto is get everything you can out of it. Collect all the data that you can get out of it. We owe it to our profession and we owe it to future geologists to collect as much data as possible so somebody understands this in the future. And that's something he's instilled in all of us. And we all do that and we all love it. It's almost slightly academic, but we work on interesting projects. I think my picture's messed up. Stay intrigued. This project was super interesting to me. It lasted several years, and I've actually gone to the Association of Engineering Geologists annual meeting and presented this project because it was so interesting. It gave me more professional development because I was able to present it to my peers. So in closing, take classes until you find something you like. Something will click, but sometimes you just have to keep looking for that thing. I didn't expect it to be geology after 4 years of a degree pursuing. So learn to communicate. It's truly the key to success in any profession. Those writing skills, I can't stress it enough. And give your undivided attention. Be present, be there. Always ask questions, be around, be helpful. Ask if you can help, ask if you can do something else. Talk to your professors, make sure you understand what your instructions are for a project. And if you don't, ask the questions. It's much better to turn in something that's complete than turn in something that's not complete because you didn't quite understand what it was.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was incredible. I have some questions if that's okay.
Yes.
So one of my questions that I want to ask is, I know you switched your majors and I know that switching majors can be a very big thing for students. So along the way, I guess, in general, what are some like academic bumps that you hit in the road, like classes or maybe just life in general? And how did you overcome them?
One of the classes, the academic class that was trouble for me was calculus. I've never been really that good at math. And then here I'm now an engineering geologist where I use math every day. And it was tough. I relied on friends to help me. I relied on friends who did understand calculus, who understood math. And they didn't give me one-on-one tutoring, but they helped me get through the class. And I think that's it. Rely on others. That was my biggest hurdle was trying to cram in everything I needed to get a Bachelor of Science in 2 years, which was calculus in summer school. Yeah, that was rough. So relying on other people to help you get through stuff. Collaboration was really important in the geology classes. You're expected to map or do some of our field work in pairs. You know, it's not really safe to go off by yourself. So finding someone who you can work with and collaborate with that person, and it's okay to let some stuff go. Sometimes you have to be able to delegate and have faith that that person will do what they're supposed to do for a project. That's a huge hurdle for a lot of people, I think. And that's where you have to find somebody who's got a similar work ethic as you do and collaborate with those people.
Thanks. I appreciate that. It's not to see, I struggle with math and calculus as well. So it's comforting to know that you have a whole career in it.
Well, maybe not calculus. I use geometry and trig a lot more.
So what are some important skills that you developed during your college life, and how have they remained relevant today?
A lot of the skill. Okay, so writing skills I did learn a lot in college, and of course that has remained relevant. Interestingly enough, I did take a drafting class, so that was where I learned the good penmanship, and that has remained relevant because you need to explain to other people what you're looking at, and it really helps if they can read your writing. There's a lot of stuff that really helped me. At Cal State Fullerton and Cal State Long Beach, I know, they really focus on the field aspects of geology. So for us, that's really important. We all start out as field geologists. I'm probably 20% in the field and 80% in the office now. But when I started out, I was 90% in the field and 10% in the office. And the focus on field geology was so important. And we've noticed that there's other universities will interview people, will hire people that just don't focus on it as strongly as Cal State Fullerton does. And that is why we always go back to Cal State Fullerton or Cal State Long Beach when we're looking to hire someone, because we know there's an emphasis in field geology. And that is so helpful for what we do.
That's really interesting to see that the really field heavy aspect kind of stems across the majors too, because I feel like biology, I mean, before when I was pre-med, it wasn't so, what even was the field to someone who's pre-med? But
Yeah.
You know, now that I'm ecology and evolutionary biology, it's very heavily field weighted.
That's great.
I love it. Oh my God, I'm a field rat. Are you kidding me? Okay, so on the subject of being in the field and everything, what's some advice that you'd give to our freshmen about developing field experience through internships and research? If they're unsure about, I know myself as a freshman, I was very unsure about research.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that's where you reach out to peers, talk to people who talk to your parents, find out if your parents know people who work in certain industries. One of our clients, his son was interested in engineering. He's a high school student. He came and did internship for us over the summer in our soils laboratory to see if he liked geotechnical engineering. Next summer, he's going to go work at a civil engineering firm and do some internship there. So he's kind of getting to see, even before he goes to college, what aspects of engineering that he likes. And it's because his parents know people in the industry. So he's able to get a chance to get in and see what it's like, step in our shoes for a day. And I think there's a lot of programs out there, a lot of times through professional organizations that allow, they have like a one-day class where you can do soil sampling or something like that. So there's a lot of opportunities out there in professional organizations. I'm sure there's a lot of biological, ecological, professional organizations that they usually welcome students with open arms and don't charge that much for them to be a member, so that they can sort of ask around, talk to people, find out what people do, ask if you can just come in and shadow them for a day at the office. Go ahead and do your work, but I just want to see what your work is like. I think the opportunity is out there, and a lot of those are in professional organizations or somebody that you know.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Oh my gosh. And that kid's going to be so prepared for college. I'm like excited for him.
He's so smart, and he seemed to really like what he did. I hope he comes back and interns next summer too.
Okay. So as you transitioned between anthropology and geology, I know that it can be very challenging dealing with the emotional aspect, and I know sometimes parents may or may not be the most supportive with that. I know my parents were very gung ho about me being a doctor, and then when I decided to be an ecologist, it was a little bit of, what does that really mean for you? What does that mean for your career? So did you have any issues with that, or and how did you overcome them if you did?
I didn't because, and I think the reason why is, well, my great grandfather was a geologist, and my dad has always held geologists in high regard. So I think part of the reason I didn't is when I was going to, when I was an anthropology major and I was interested in forensics, maybe being a medical examiner, I would have had to go back into biology. I would have had to get a PhD. Really, even in archaeology, you really would need to get a PhD to find a career.
Yeah.
With geology, you really just need a bachelor's. Nobody really requires a master's, certainly not a PhD. I mean, it helps, but you really just need a bachelor's degree. And so to me, that was a little easier. Yes, I had to put in 2 more years. Instead of graduating in 4 years, it took me 6 years to graduate. But having a Bachelor of Science instead of a Bachelor of Arts, uh, that helped. Having a geology degree and being able to move into a job straight away that I'm still at after college was huge. So it isn't time investment, and it can be a little, for me, trying to crunch 2 years of science classes into basically a year of chemistry, a year of physics, a year of calculus had to get crammed into 2 years so that I could graduate when I wanted. And suddenly I'm taking 18 units, when most people would be taking, 8 or 10, trying to finish out their senior year, and I'm cramming everything in at the last minute. So that was stressful. But I knew at the end I was following what I found that I had passion for, that I didn't realize that I had that passion in me until I took that class in geology.
That's
It was
awesome.
rewarding.
I bet, man. I can't tell you how many of my friends have tried to get me over to geology. So I'm actually really glad I get to talk to you.
They do have a lot of fun in that department.
They do. And I think it's hilarious that the drinking joke goes back way further than my friends made me believe.
Yeah, it goes so far back.
That was so funny. Oh, I was cracking up. Okay, so you've been at your job for quite some time now, and you've been able to advance in it and everything. Was there ever a time, maybe in the beginning or even now, that you've had second thoughts or any kind of feelings like that?
Yeah, actually, when I about 2 years in, we got a new job that I was the field geologist for, and it was so hard. And I remember feeling, I can't do this. This is so hard. And I talked to people, I talked to my friends, talked to my husband, who was he had just finished his teaching credential, and he was teaching high school geology. So he was very supportive and said, yes, you can, you've got this, ask for help. And that's when I learned you have to ask for help if you can't do it on your own. So I did ask for help, but I remember it so vividly, just feeling so overwhelmed. And I thought, do I really want to do engineering geology? There's so many other aspects of geology I could do. Is this really what I want to do? I remember feeling like there wasn't a learning curve, it was a learning wall. But I got over that wall. I persevered. I didn't want to give up. I thought, well, I'll give it another year. I'll finish this job and see if it's just, this job. We had a grading contractor that was a good old boy, and he didn't like women, especially young women, telling him what to do. So that was part of the hurdle. But I got past that, and I think I became a stronger person for getting past that. And I realized that I really did like the puzzle piece. I loved putting those pieces together and building a geologic model of the site. And you get to do that in some of the other disciplines in geology, but I don't think you get to do it in as much detail as we do.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. I love when you were talking about your boss's his motto, just taking all of the information that you can because you owe it to yourselves, to the ground in general, and to the future of. I love that. That's incredible.
We owe it to our profession to get everything we can out of it and share it.
Because I never thought about that. Like once it gets covered up, it's covered.
Yep.
That's
the only way to you got to bulldoze a house and uncover it to expose it again.
That's incredible. You just don't think about these things unless you're exposed.
No, and I didn't either until I started doing geotechnical. And I went, oh my gosh, I see a house on a hill. It would never occur to me it's sitting on 100 feet of man-made earth. Right. But a lot of them are.
That's crazy. I love that. It just gives you a whole different view of the world, essentially.
Yes.
So what are some of you explained other career paths that you can have and you can take in geology or as a geologist. What are some of those?
There are probably about 6 different disciplines. One that I think is going to be the future of geology is hydrogeology. It's the study of how water moves through the earth. So aquifers, where we get our drinking water, how we store our drinking water, how to take wastewater and turn it into drinking water. All of that stuff is just getting, as we're getting closer to depleting our resources of natural water sources, we're looking at all these other options and how do we store water? Is there a way that we can, Orange County Water District, Irvine Ranch Water District, Metropolitan Water District, all of them hire hydrogeologists or consulting firms that are specifically hydrogeology. And they study ways to put water back into the ground to naturally clean it up so that we can tap into that for future generations that need to be able to access water. I think that discipline is going to be huge in the future as our population grows and our water sources are being depleted. We're going to need to know where to find that. There's mining geology. A lot of people go straight into mining geology right after college and learn how to log wells. They drill those thousands of feet deep, and you get to see the soils that come out of that and log in detail what's there. And then trying to figure out where the mineral resources are, using the geologic model you've created and telling your blasters, okay, go over here. We think we have good material over here that we need to get into. One of the things the boron mine in Kern County, they are mining stuff that we use for batteries. They mine lithium. They mine, there's so many reasons to need a geologist in mining. So that's one. Environmental. Anytime somebody on the same sites that we do, when you're going to go develop a site, they need to hire an environmental firm to make sure that there's no contaminants in the ground. A lot of sites have been used previously and people just dump stuff in the ground, and they have to mitigate that. They have to figure out a way to remediate the site so that it's safe to put something else on there. Environmental geology is huge. I know a lot of people who are in environmental geology. I think that might be the #1 group of the highest employed geologists are in environmental, and then I think after that is hydrogeology. And I know I'm missing one that I just thought of, but it just escaped me. But there's a lot of different. One of my friends is a hydrogeologist. He didn't even know that it existed until he got to Cal State Fullerton and took a class. And now he's head of an entire group for Orange County Water District, and he loves his job. He thinks it is fascinating what he does, and he loves doing it. So
you might get me over to the dark side.
Most
I only have a semester left. I should not be changing anything.
So it's hard. Doing an evolutionary ecology is fascinating and helpful for the future too. That's one way to look at it too.
I had no idea about hydrogeology either. That's something so new to me. So when he said that and started going into it, I was like, wow, this is really interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. We hire hydrogeologists as a sub-consultant when we're working on a project that's particularly challenging with the groundwater table. We'll hire people to help us understand that. So it's really interesting. And then there's fault geologists who just go out and study active faults. And there's state agencies. Caltrans hires geologists. California Geological Survey, United States Geological Survey. They all hire geologists.
That's incredible. I had no idea about this. I mean, wow. I mean, so it doesn't sound like geologists have all that much of a hard time finding a job after getting their degree or anything, but do you have any?
It ebbs and flows just like any time. And unfortunately with COVID, this year was a little rough. I feel really bad for kids just graduating in 2020, looking for jobs, because our job got very, very slow. We slowed down a lot. Talking to people are starting to get picked up again. Things are moving forward, but they're moving forward slowly.
Yeah.
So I think there are people that are hiring now, but it used to be a lot easier, I think, and now it's just kind of follows the market. So if the market goes down, it's harder to get into a position. I feel like there's still a lot of people looking, especially right now, but keep looking. That's what I say. Persevere, find something.
All right. And okay, I think one of my last questions is probably going to be, what is some advice that you have for students in general pursuing, I don't know, just making it through college? Any last words or good advice for getting through it?
Making it through college. I actually worked part-time when I was in school, and I think that helped. I worked at Disneyland as a ride operator, and working with the public, the general public, made me realize I definitely needed to be a professional. So I think that helped. It also helped keep me sort of focused, and knowing that my long term, was I need to graduate. I want to find a job. I want a career. I want to do something I like. Mm-hmm. So taking those classes until you find something you like. I took a lot of theater classes because it was fun. I took PE classes because I wanted to get some exercise. I took a lot of English classes, and I would have loved to have been an English major, but I also knew I didn't want to just take classes forever or be a high school teacher, which I felt was my only option. So I think it's fine. Just keep taking classes until you find something, and don't get hung up on the 4 or 5 years that it takes. If it takes longer, enjoy it. Enjoy college. Looking back, I feel like I thoroughly enjoyed it. But there's some things I wish I had done just a little. I'm like, oh, I wish I had done that, or joined that club, or was on campus for this or that. So I think there's get the most out of it. And if it takes a little longer to get the most out of it, that's okay. Find something you like. Having a bigger resume with all the classes. I mean, one of the things we looked at here were transcripts. Oddly enough, they looked at transcripts here. So it was really important to take all the classes that I did, do well in the classes, but find something that you really like. That's so important. Find something. I'm challenged every day in my job, and that makes it easier. I come home at the end of the day and I still talk about work. I talk about work to my husband. I talk about work to my daughter, because something unusual or different will happen every day, and there's another challenge or a puzzle for me to solve.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I love it. So I lied. This is my last question.
Okay.
Because you brought up transcripts. I like to tell the students that you want to strive to do really well, obviously, but I really like to I know for myself the aspect of getting experience through field research and things like that. That was what's shown to be almost a game changer sometimes. So does that hold true in the job market and everything? How much has experience weighted over academic grades?
I think experience is huge. We do look at transcripts, we do look at grades, but we don't hang up on them. We look to make sure the field classes for geology, there's field classes, we look at those grades more than we would look at your calculus grade, for instance, or a poli-sci grade. But we'll look at the field classes and see how well somebody did in those classes. So I think it really is the experience. If you can demonstrate, that you understand the field work part of it. We had a geologist. He was an A++ field geologist, but he didn't do that well in school. But he was fantastic. He ended up moving on and going to environmental, because it was a company that was closer to his home. But he was our best field geologist. But you wouldn't know that looking at his transcripts necessarily, because he didn't have straight A's. He had some B's, he had some C's in there. So looking at that, but then talking to them and interviewing them and finding out what they've done in the field, what they've done out, what have you done to professional groups that you're part of? Have you been out in the field? What classes did you like the most? If people say they like their field classes the most, we take that as a big plus category in the interview process. Mm-hmm. So I think you're right. The field really is, it's really important. Being able to collect the data, collect as much data as you can, and then make sense of it. That's so important. Being able to put that into a model in your head and express that model to somebody else is so important. And that's not necessarily something you learn in school, you know, at a desk.
Yeah. It definitely brought things.
It's important. But then again, you have to have a degree in order to take your licensing exams. So just like in biology or you know, you get your physician, you take your board exams, and in law school you take your board exam, to the bar exam to be a lawyer. In geology, there's a national exam that you take to be a licensed geologist. And the prerequisite for that is having a degree in geology. And you have to send your transcripts to in this case, Sacramento, to the state board, and they review them. And then once you've got that exam, then you can sit for other exams. But it is important. You have to have that, but you really do also need to have that field experience. It's so important to round you out.
All right. Well, I mean, I think that's all the questions that I have. Thank you so much. It was incredible talking to you.
You're welcome. It was great talking to you too. And I'm sorry we couldn't do this in person. It's so much fun in person.
Oh, I know. I'm sure they would have loved to be able to ask you questions themselves.
I wish I could help. Well, you guys have my information, so you can always email me questions.
I might be changing things, so.
Your parents will love it.
All right. Thank you so much again.
You're welcome. Thank you.